Welcome, everyone, to the Ready for the Draft podcast. I am your host, Gregg Schutze. This is episode 23 of the 2023 podcast series, where we take a look at the draft-eligible prospects and get you ready for the NFL draft. And I realize we haven't had a podcast since the Combine, so I agree. It's about time we have a post-Combine podcast. Honestly, I've been trying to keep up with all things free agency right now. Everything's been going fast and furious. The workouts have been on display as well. But really, let's get back to the Combine real quick. Let's talk about who really made a name for themselves, who's sending us back to watch more film, either positive or negative, and really kind of go through position by position, who are the guys that really stood out with their workouts, and then we'll start getting into some of that conversation with free agency and what that really looks like for the draft. Now, before we jump into this, I think the other thing that I've been dealing with is I actually have a torn pectoralis major, my left pec, while I was bench pressing, and I actually have surgery scheduled for tomorrow. I'm taping this the early morning hours of Thursday, March 16th, so the following day I'll actually be having surgery for the torn pec. So next time I speak with you, I'll actually have my arm in a sling and be recovering from that surgically repaired pectoral muscle. So I've been dealing with that as well, but that's really no excuse. We still need to make sure that we're continuing our podcast and really kind of bringing everything to you. So let's jump into day one of those on-field workouts. Defensive linemen and linebackers. We know that defensive tackles really were the guys that took the stage first and foremost, and I'll tell you, I think number one on the list has to be Calijah Kancey, right? 6'1", 281 pounds, ran a 4.67 40. I believe that was the fastest since, I want to say 2003, out of that position. 1.64, 10-yard split, which is just staggering. When you look at him, he's obviously going to be that three technique, a quick penetrator. Reminds you a lot of Geno Atkins. I think there's a lot of comparisons. People want to compare him to Aaron Donald because they are both undersized defensive tackles, if you will. And I think a better comparison, I've heard Daniel Jeremiah talked about Ed Oliver. I really like that comparison. I look at Geno Atkins. He's really the guy that I compare Calijah Kancey to most. I look at Calijah Kancey, I actually have him as my number 2 defensive tackle. This is a guy that is able to make plays behind the line of scrimmage, both against the pass and the run, that interior penetrator, a guy that's going to be able to get into the backfield in a hurry. I think he goes first round. He could go 18 to the Lions. Seattle's made some adjustments there up front. He could still go number 20 overall. I think the Philadelphia Eagles, if they don't look for a tackle there in the top 10, if Jalen Carter doesn't slide or they don't make a play on Jalen Carter, and we'll talk about his situation here after we discuss the Combine, but I think the Eagles sitting there at the end of round 1, either they stay put, they might still be able to get Kancey, or they look to trade back up into round number 1 to get Calijah Kancey. But to me, he's definitely a first rounder when it's all said and done. Jalen Redmond out of Oklahoma, 6'2", 291, a guy who had 10 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks there at that defensive tackle position. A guy that, once he's really solidified himself as a starter on that line, was one of the more productive defensive linemen there for Oklahoma. Brent Venables, his defense really struggling in his first season there, but Jalen Redmond was really one of the standouts. Ran a 4.81 40, so obviously that stands out. The 3-cone drill was the fastest there as well at a 7.3 seconds, and really the 20-yard shuttle as well. 4.51, repped out 225 27 times. He's a guy that obviously he's still going to be a day 3 pick, a guy that you're probably going to see come off the board in the 4th or 5th round, but I think a guy that the athleticism, the juice that he has, if you will, a guy that can get up the field for you. He's going to be one of those nice rotational pieces that you're going to be looking for. I think Moro Ojimo also did a great job there for Texas, 6'3", 292. You look at the 40 and you're like, okay, 5'0", 440 isn't that great, but the 1.77 split was one of the quicker among the defensive linemen. This is a guy that also sported a 33-inch vertical leap, which was second only to Jalen Redmond's 34.5. So you've got that lower body explosiveness to go along with it as well. This guy's heavy-handed. You saw that, hitting the bags. This is a guy that I think, is going to be in that 3rd, 4th round range A guy that could either play that defensive tackle position. He could also be a 5 technique, I think, given the right situation. Zach Pickens out of South Carolina, another guy, look, 6'4", 291, ran a 4.89 40, 1.74 split. But when you look at Zach Pickens, I had said that, with the film that I watched in 2022, I didn't see the same juice that we saw in 2021. And we needed him to return to form if we were talking about him as a potential day 2 candidate. We finally got to see some of that, so that was really nice to see. Dante Stills out of West Virginia. Look, 6'3", 286. Some people are talking about him as an undrafted free agent. I think this is a guy that's going to be a day 3 guy. He'll be a mid to late day 3 candidate, but a guy that I think can be versatile, can play up and down your line. He's another quick penetrator, much like his brother was. Ran that 4.85 40 though, showcasing some pretty good athleticism as well. Brian Bresee out of Clemson is probably the final guy that I really want to mention here. 6'5", 298, ran that 4.86 40 with a 1.71 split. That's second, obviously, to Kalijah Cansey. Tied Jalen Redmond there with that 1.71. 29-inch vertical leap. But you saw him return to that athleticism. You saw his ability to drop and turn the corner in a hurry. A guy that size should not be able to bend quite like Brian Bresee does. I think Bresee is going to be a first-round pick. I actually have him slated to come off the board there to New Orleans there at the end of round 1. I think some of the production there is questionable at times with him, but I think he's scheme versatile. I think he's a guy that's, you're going to see some strength out of him at the point of attack, some power, and I think you're also going to obviously see that quick burst like you saw there with that 40 time. So definitely a guy that is going to be turning some heads there. When you look at some of the other guys in that group, Gervon Dexter, 6'6", 310, ran a 4.88 40, which was really nice. Oddly enough, ran a 1.81 10-yard split. This is a guy that I think has struggled at times to produce. He's got the body type. He looks the part, but, where was the production? I think the athleticism there is really going to send people back and really take a look at things. Siaki Ika ran that 5'3", 940. A big guy, you're really wondering what you're going to see there. Ran a 1.88 10-yard split. So if you're looking for a nose tackle and some of that explosiveness, he's not on the level of Dontari Poe. He's certainly not on the level of Jordan Davis. He's not even on the level of Avita Vea or any of those guys that came off the board in round 1. I think he'll still be a day 2 pick. I think he showed off some decent short area quickness for a guy his size, but he's really a space eater, and a lot of the tape shows that short area burst. We just didn't see a ton of that there at the combine. I think the other guys there. I thought Cameron Young, the guy that lined up at nose at times, 6'3", 304, ran a 5'1 40, looked much more athletic than say PJ Mustipher of Penn State. I thought he looked really slow in a lot of the drills. A bit of a disappointment there. DJ Dale. I was expecting to see a little bit, he and Keandre Coburn ran a 5.22, 5.26 and a 5.22 respectively in the 40. I was expecting to see a little bit quicker times out of the two of them as well. But comparatively speaking, Keanu Benton, I thought had a decent day. 6'4", 309, ran a 5.08 40. A guy that shows off really good agility. That 3-cone drill ran a 7.34. So a guy that definitely, he lined up at the nose there for Wisconsin, but a guy that I think has that versatility because of his athleticism to line him in a lot of different places, can be a lot more scheme versatile than I think people were really expecting. You move to the edge position, and obviously the first name that has to come out of your mouth on this one is Nolan Smith. Good Lord, coming off of that pec tear. I can relate. 6'2", 238. Comes out and runs a 4.39 40 with a 41.5-inch vertical leap. Just staggering numbers. Health, definitely not an issue for him. This is a guy who's incredibly strong at the point of attack. Does a great job setting that strong edge. Does a great job stacking and shedding, getting off those blocks, and showing that lateral agility to get outside and drop the running backs in the open field. Still needs to work a little bit. Getting to the quarterback, didn't see a lot of production there. But I think, when you look at Nolan Smith, a guy that we were thinking maybe would come off the board early in the second round. I think he could end up being a first-round pick as a result. Some of the other guys that really impressed, I mean, obviously, anytime you get to see Will Anderson Jr., you're going to be impressed. We wanted to see him run a little bit quicker than that 4.6. If we were going to be getting into that Von Miller type conversation, he's just not that. But I thought that 4.6 40 is definitely respectable. Ran a 1.61 10-yard split. So I think that burst coming off the football is much better than people were really leading on for him. 6'3", 253. Look, this guy's going to be that third overall pick going to the Arizona Cardinals. Now that Carolina's traded up for the first pick, we know they're going quarterback. We also know Houston's going to go quarterback. Will Anderson's going to Arizona. There's no doubt about that in my mind, and this just kind of helped solidify that decision. How about Ade Adebare? Really turning heads. 6'2", 282. I talked about his strength at the point of attack. Repped out 225 27 times, but man, he showed off some incredible athleticism. 4.49 40 with a 1.61 10-yard split, 37.5-inch vertical leap. The athleticism much more so than what we really saw on tape at times. We saw some flashes, but where was all of that production? I think some of the times he was seeing a lot of double teams. When I went back and looked at some of the film, really wanting to set a hard edge there, but a guy that can get up, be physical at that point of attack, but also have the quickness off the ball to get up the field and be a menace against both the run and the pass. To me, I think Adebare is going to be a day 2 pick. This workout definitely solidified that for me. Will McDonald, the fourth, didn't run the 40, but 36-inch vertical leap. Also broad jumped 11 feet, which is absolutely, that there's that lower body twitchiness. 6'4", 239 pounds. This is a dude that at the Senior Bowl, he bends so well, freakishly, bending. There was a tweet that Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl tweeted out talking about just how low this guy gets as he's turning the corner. To me, Will McDonald is a guy that could very well come off the board in round number 1 when it's all said and done because of that freakish athleticism, a guy that can really turn the corner and get after the quarterback in a hurry. Tuli Tuipulotu there for USC. The measurements were kind of surprising. We had him at 6'4", 290 plus pounds. He actually shows up at the combine weighing in at 266 pounds, 6'3". We talked about length. It's not on the par of Cam Jordan. Really, the body type just isn't there. 32 and a quarter inch arms. But, man, you want to talk about a guy that packs a punch. That hit that he had on the pad, the guy that was holding the pad probably is in concussion protocol after that, because you heard that slap and just how violent those hands are. That's where he wins at the point of attack. He has such good hands, so explosive coming off the edge. He's a guy to me that's going to be an easy second rounder, a guy that was extremely productive for the Trojans. How about Lucas Van Ness? 4.58 40, 1.64 10-yard split. A kid that just gets after it. Ran a 7.02 3-cone drill, which was second to Jose Ramirez, another guy that I thought had a great combine. But with Lucas Van Ness, he's 6'5", 272, had a 34-inch wingspan, 11-inch hands. He's got these giant mitts. Once he locks onto you, he can kind of do whatever he wants with that offensive lineman, whether it's driving the guy back into the backfield, using these slaps and rips to really attack the hands of that offensive lineman. This is a guy, look, he never started for Iowa, yet had 13 sacks in 2 seasons on the field for Iowa. To me, I look at Lucas Van Ness. He's a guy that's going to be ascending. If he can get to the right situation, get a D-line coach that can really help him develop, he could end up being a terror at the next level. Speaking of Jose Ramirez, just 6'2", 242, ran a 4.73 40, which isn't spectacular by any means when you're talking about this group, but man, he ran a 4.3 20-yard shuttle, and then his 3-cone drill was under 7 seconds, 6.95. So when you think about that explosiveness coming off the edge, the quickness, the lateral agility, his ability to stop and start, to me, I look at Jose Ramirez. This was a guy, again, extremely productive coming off the edge for Eastern Michigan. I think that lower body He's very lean in the lower body. That's something that's going to be an issue, potentially getting rerouted. But there's no question, if you allow him to play in space, that lateral agility is really going to pop. Nick Herbig showed up at 240 pounds. Good Lord. 4.65 40. Had a really impressive 10-yard split with that 159. That's definitely something that's kind of staggering there. But really the biggest thing is the lack of length there at the arms. 31.25-inch arms. Really shorter arms. I think that was the shortest among this entire group. So he's going to have to continue to show that he can bend coming off the edge and really keep himself clean. That's going to be a bit of an issue. He may end up having to be an off-ball linebacker, and we haven't really seen him do a ton of that there at Wisconsin. I thought Robert Beal had a nice day, 4.48 40, 6'4", 247 pounds, a guy that, look, he's still raw, still growing into the position there at Georgia, but to me, he's a guy that I think is definitely improving his draft stock. How about Yaya Diaby out of Louisville? 6'3", 263, 4.5, 140. The 1.56 10-yard split was the fastest in the group. This is a guy that, in the group, not named Nolan Smith, I should say, but this is a guy that can definitely bend it coming off the edge, can get after the quarterback in a hurry. I think he's a guy that is going to impress throughout the entire draft process. I thought Derek Hall, 4.55 40, 159 10-yard split at 6'3", 254 pounds, is another guy that we have to keep an eye out for. Isaiah Foskey ran a 4.58, but he has those 34-inch arms, a guy that loves to long arm you and really drive you back off the football. Zach Harrison out of Ohio State. Measured in at 6'5.5", 274 pounds, but 36.25-inch arms. You want to talk about a huge wingspan. When we talk about long-arming guys, and that's really his bread and butter when he's using that length to his advantage. I mean, that's obviously his calling card there. Another guy known for the wingspan is Tyree Wilson. He didn't run at the combine, didn't really compete, but 6'6", 271, 35.5/8-inch arms. Another dude that is going to use that length to his advantage coming off the edge there. On the flip side, you look at a guy like Mike Morris. I think during the season he weighed in around 293. He's down to 275, which is good. But you look at that explosiveness. He ran a 4.95 40, 172 10-yard split, 28.5-inch vertical leap. The explosiveness just wasn't there. That was something that I was really waiting to see for him, trying to figure out exactly where he's going to play. Is he going to be a guy that's going to have to stand up and rush the passer like he did at Michigan? Is he going to have to put his hand in the dirt? He's a guy that I think is really going to have to show up at Michigan's Pro Day to kind of improve that draft stock and continue to move push the narrative a little bit. I thought with O'Shawn Mathis, out of Nebraska, formerly of TCU, 6'5", 250, ran a 4.74, has those really long 35-inch arms. I think he's another guy that I think I was expecting a little bit more explosiveness coming out of him. Didn't really see that nearly as much as I was expecting or what I would have liked to have seen. He's one of those guys that could provide some depth to your group, but a guy that I still was left wanting a little bit more out of him. So those were the guys that I think stood out on both sides. Some of the other guys, if you just scan it and you look at it quickly, I thought Byron Young out of Tennessee, 6'2", 250, runs that 4.43 40, showcasing that explosiveness, 38-inch vertical leap, 11-foot broad jump as well. So that's something to really take away there. A guy that, look, he's 6'2", 250, may end up having to be a 34 outside linebacker, but a guy that can really come down off the edge in a hurry. I thought Lonnie Phelps at 6'2", 244 ran a 4.55. He's a guy that I thought helped himself as well, which can then lead us into the linebackers. And when I look at the linebackers, I think the first guy that really jumps off the page for me in terms of looking at my notes is Yasir Abdullah. We talk about what he's able to do coming off the edge as a pass rusher, a guy that can get to the quarterback in a hurry, makes a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. He's 6'1", 237 pounds, so not the biggest guy by any means, but ran a 4.47 40, a 1.56 10-yard split. To me, when I look at Yasir Abdullah, 36.5-inch vertical leap, The explosiveness is there. This is a guy that can make plays behind the line of scrimmage. The athleticism is absolutely just oozing out of this kid. I think he's a guy, to me, that is going to solidify himself as a potential third-round pick. And a guy that could be used in a lot of different ways. Henry To'o, respectable numbers, 4.62, which isn't overly spectacular. 32-inch vertical leap and a 9.8 broad jump. Not the most explosive there with that lower body, but a guy that looks so smooth in the drills. He's a guy that, again, you're talking about that second day of the draft. I think he's a guy that definitely can be in that consideration. When you talk about the 40, obviously you're going to look at Owen Papo first and foremost. 6 foot 225, ran that 4.39 40 with a 1.52 10-yard split, 35.5 inch vertical leap. This is a dude that he flies around and makes plays, and he comes looking to hit you in the mouth. So he's a lot of fun to watch. I just wonder exactly where we're going to see him line up at the next level. To me, he's still a day 3 guy, but a guy, if you keep him clean and allow him to run around and make plays sideline to sideline, he's a guy that's going to rack up a lot of tackles for you there at that linebacker spot. Jack Campbell out of Iowa, 6'5", 249, runs that 4.65 40 with a 1.59 split. So when you're talking about his straight line speed, may not be the fastest, but 37-inch vertical leap, 10.8 broad jump, but then the 20-yard shuttle runs a 4.24. I mean, when you think about that, you put that into consideration. Not every receiver ran the 20-yard shuttle, but when you look at that group, there are 18 guys that did. That 4.24 would have put him in the top 5 among the receivers. So the lateral agility is absolutely there. 6.743 cone drill is also absolutely staggering for that linebacker spot. He's a guy, to me, that I think has solidified himself as a second-round linebacker and a guy that I think is going to have a tremendous career at the next level. Same goes with Deion Henley out of Washington State. 6'1", 225, runs a 4.54 40, a 35-inch vertical leap, but this is a guy who can cover. You see the natural cover ability. This is a guy, he played safety, at Nevada, converts to that linebacker spot, and then really had a standout season there for Wazoo. Butkus Award finalist, a guy that can make plays all over the field. He's a guy, to me, that I think is definitely ascending into that second-round conversation for sure. Jeremy Banks didn't set the world on fire with his workout, but 6'1", 232, I should say with the testing, but the workouts looked incredibly smooth, incredibly comfortable. To me, Banks is going to be a day 3 guy, but he was a guy that was utilized by Tennessee primarily just shooting gaps as a blitzer, getting into the backfield in a hurry. I think he's a guy that could do a lot more than really what he was asked to do. Trenton Simpson, 6'2", 235. We know this guy's a tremendous athlete. Runs that 4.43 40 with 1.55 10-yard split. 25 reps in the bench press, 225. That's second only to Noah Sewell. And to me, when I look at Trenton Simpson, what he was asked to do when Brent Venables was the defensive coordinator there for the Clemson Tigers, allowed him to fly around and make plays. When he's even said himself, when you're drafting him, you're not getting a guy who's just going to be playing one position. You can line him up all over the field. He's versatile like Isaiah Simmons, maybe not quite on that level, but he's one of those guys who could potentially be a first rounder, likely going to come off the board early in the second round. But you see the explosiveness. This is a guy that flies around and makes plays, and I think could even be a better pro, more productive pro than he was there at Clemson. Drew Sanders didn't work out, but he did show up at 6'4", 235 pounds. Not really worried about the size there. Dorian Williams and D. Winters, 2 guys that could end up ultimately being wills at the next level. Both run a 4.49 40, showcasing some really nice athleticism there. The difference between the two, Dorian Williams has about a couple inches on him in terms of that arm length. I think that, to me, is something that is definitely a standout. Remember this name, Shaka Hayward out of Duke, 6'3", 235, 34-inch arms, was a 4.53 40. This is a guy that I think is flying under the radar. Incredibly productive there for Duke. A guy that racks up a ton of tackles, he's somebody to definitely keep an eye out for. I thought the athleticism definitely showed up there. Same goes for Anthony Orji out of Vanderbilt. 6'1", 230, 4.53 40, 38.5-inch vertical leap. Another guy who showcased tremendous athleticism for the Commodores, and a guy that I'm looking forward to seeing, where he's going to come off the board in the draft. I think probably in the 5th round range, but a guy that has some versatility that he can definitely bring to the table. Which then takes us to day number 2. That's going to be the corners and safeties. And when you talk about the corners, I think the first name that has to come off is Christian Gonzalez. He wasn't the fastest, but he did run that 4.38 40 with a 41.5-inch vertical leap, 11.1 broad jump. This is a guy who looked so smooth in the drills. He was consistent. He was controlled. Just made it look effortless. And that's one of the things to me when I look at Christian Gonzalez. I think he's the number 1 corner prospect and a guy that should be coming off the board in the top 10. He really solidified that for me there at the Combine. The next name you have to mention, to me, I think is Deontay Banks out of Maryland. This was a guy who was kind of in that second group, a guy that we're talking about, okay, as an early day 2 guy with the potential to be a round 1 pick. Comes out, runs a 4.35 40, 42-inch vertical leap, 11.4 broad jump, which are absolutely staggering, right? And also measured in with some pretty darn good size too, at 6 foot, 197 pounds. So when you're talking about that athleticism, he looks so fluid in the drills. His ability to close, you saw the closing speed. To me, I look at Deontay Banks. He solidified his status as a first-round corner. I think he's a guy that Minnesota sitting there at 23. I know they picked up Byron Murphy. I think they could still benefit from getting another corner. Deontay Banks could definitely be that guy. And then, all right, we got to talk about the fastest Combine 40 time, DJ Turner, 4.26 40, 38.5-inch vertical leap, 10.11 broad jump. This dude was tremendously fast. We didn't see him participate in the drills, but a guy that can be a lockdown corner on the outside. He's one of those guys to me that I thought his tape was up and down. I didn't always see the high performer that some people are talking about with him. I don't think he's a guaranteed first round pick, but I think those tools that he was able to display there at the Combine, there's really a lot to work with, obviously, when you've got a guy that's running 4.26 and showcases that athleticism. So he's a guy to me that I think is definitely someone to watch as we get closer and closer to the draft. You look at Joey Porter Jr., 6'2.5", 193 pounds, but the wingspan, 34-inch arms, a guy that has, over, I think, just under an 81-inch wingspan, just unheard of at the corner position. Runs a 4.46 with a 1.5 10-yard split. They were talking to his dad, Joey Porter Sr., on the telecast, and when you talk about Joey Porter Sr., he's looking at it saying, what, he could probably run faster, should be under 4.4. Let's see what he does at Penn State's Pro Day. But to me, Joey Porter Jr. is a guy that's coming off the board in the top half of round number 1. That length, his ability to lock guys down, the physicality, that's something that definitely jumps off. Repped out 225 17 times, which was really second most among the cornerbacks to Clark Phillips. To me, Joey Porter's a guy that you just don't want to line up against. He's going to use that length to his advantage. He's going to reroute you, stay in your hip pocket. If he does get beaten, I think he has some better speed than I think people were really giving him credit for. Emmanuel Forbes, 6'1", weighs in at 166 pounds. That may keep him from being a first-round pick, but look, 6 pick sixes in his career, 4.35 40. A guy that looked tremendously fluid in the drills. I think he's a guy to me that should be on the short list of candidates for first round consideration. I mentioned Deontay Banks, his teammate there at Maryland, Jacorian Bennett, really made people take notice with the athleticism. 5'11", 188 pounds, ran a 4.3 40, 1.48 10-yard split, 40.5-inch vertical leap, 11.1 broad jump. I mean, you want to talk about a pair of corners coming out of Maryland. Good Lord, those two guys really set the stage and looked tremendously explosive. Julius Brents out of K-State, 6'3", 198. Another guy with 34-inch arms. Runs a 4.53, not overly spectacular, but at the same time, here's some of the other things to consider. 41.5-inch vertical leap, 11.6 broad jump, runs a 6.63 three-cone drill, which, there weren't too many corners that actually did a three-cone. He was one of those guys that wanted to showcase that lateral agility, runs a 4.05 20-yard shuttle as well. Julius Brents, to me, is one of those corners. He didn't get beat very often there at the Senior Bowl, especially in those one-on-ones. I look at Julius Brents as a day 2 lock, especially after what he was able to showcase there with that athleticism. Keitrell Clark out of Louisville. Look, 5'10", 181 pounds. Runs that 4.42 40. This is a guy, he's feisty, wants to get after it, and showcase some speed, that's going to allow him to be, in that early day 3 consideration. Jalen Jones out of Texas A&M shows up at 6'2", 200 pounds. Really short arms for a guy his size. 30 3/4 inch arms. Runs a 4.57 40 with a 1.48 10-yard split. So that early explosiveness definitely jumped out. Run a 6.88 three-cone drill, 38-inch vertical leap as well. He was a guy that kind of turned my head a little bit and said, wow, want to go back and take a look at the film a little bit more with Jalen Jones. Travius Hodges Tomlinson, they said he measured in at 5'7", but now he's at 5'8" there at the combine. 4.4 140, 39-inch vertical leap, 11-inch broad jump. We know that he's explosive. He's always had to battle, being undersized at that cornerback position, but the guy is a gamer there on the outside. That explosiveness definitely is going to help him. I look at Clark Phillips III, instinctive corner, 5'9", 184 pounds, runs a 4.5 140, not overly explosive, 33-inch vertical leap. That's something that he did look pretty smooth in the drills, but he's just a guy that I worry about a little bit in terms of that overall athleticism at the next level. Riley Moss, 6'1", 193, 4.45 40, 1.48 10-yard split. He's a guy that solidified his status in my top 10 at that cornerback spot. Darius Rush is the guy that I think has continued to impress. 4.3 640. A guy, he's 6'2", 198, very long. And a guy that I thought really looked good there at the Senior Bowl with the footwork, his ability to drive on the football, undercutting routes, always seemed to be in position. I think he and his teammate Cam Smith, who ran that 4.3 40 at 6'1", 180, 1.49 10-yard split, 38-inch vertical leap, and 11.2 broad jump. Those are a pair of teammates that are going to get drafted in the first 2 days of the draft. I think Cam Smith is either going to be a late 1 or an early 2, but another guy with really nice explosiveness. Keely Ringo, has the size, 6'2", 207, ran a 4.36 40. Really had a curious attempt on an interception. It was really kind of an awkward play on the football. Didn't look very natural, which was kind of surprising. To me, there's some people that have Ringo in the top 10. I don't see it. I think there is some athleticism there, but he also got burned a lot, and not always trusting his eyes, putting himself in the wrong position, losing contact with the receiver. I see Keely Ringo as a second rounder and a guy that I think is going to need a little bit more development. Terrell Smith, 6 foot, 204, another solidly built corner, runs that 4.4 140. For a guy his size, I thought that was nice. Nice to see. He's a guy that I think is going to bring some physicality to the position. Corey Trice Jr., 6'3", one of the taller corners, 206. Not incredibly long in terms of his length, the arm length, but runs a 4.47. At 6'3", that's not bad at all. But that 1.56, there's a little bit more of that speed where he's really working up to that speed, gathering acceleration. But he did have a 35.5-inch vertical leap. Also, a 11-foot broad jump. So another guy that I thought definitely helped himself there at the combine. When you look at the safety position, honestly, Brian Branch, 6 foot 190, ran a 4.58. That's not really his game. He's not going to be the most explosive, but a guy who's incredibly instinctive. If you're going to be a guy that's considered in round number 1 as a top safety, if you don't have that burner mentality, it's the instincts that are going to take over, trusting your eyes, being able to close quickly on the football and make plays, and that's exactly what Brian Branch's game is. At the safety position as well, Sidney Brown, 5'10", 211, runs a 4.47 40, 40-inch vertical leap, 10-10 broad jump. I look at Sidney Brown, the way that he flies around and makes plays all over the field, similar to Talanoa Hufanga. They've got similar hairstyles as well. I think this is a guy that people are going to be sleeping on. He'll probably get drafted in round 4, possibly even round 5 like Hufanga did, but I think Sidney Brown's going to be a day 1 starter. Another guy who's an instinctive player, didn't run the fastest 40, 5'11", 203. That's Jair Brown out of Penn State. 4.65 40, just a 32.5-inch vertical leap. Not the most explosive guy. I was expecting a little bit more athleticism out of him, but he's another guy that really wins with his eyes, wins with that instinctiveness. I think really the safety that turned everybody's heads was Quan Martin, Jartavius Martin. 5'11", 194 pounds, runs a 4.46 40 with a 1.47 10-yard split, 44-inch vertical leap, which is, that's jumping out of the building, and an 11.1 broad jump. This is a guy who, at that safety spot, also lined up in the slot, played some nickel, a guy that just flies around to make plays, both against, over the top, against the pass, but also in run support. Runs the alleys really well, gets downhill in a hurry. He's a guy that definitely jumped off the screen when you're watching him play. There's no doubt about that. Safety position, though, not a bunch of tremendous athletes. I thought Jason Taylor, the second out of Oklahoma State, ran a 4.5 40, 43-inch vertical leap, definitely helped himself, 6 foot 204. He's the guy that nobody's really talking about, despite the fact that he had 6 interceptions there for Oklahoma. A guy that I think can be a playmaker at the next level. Antonio Johnson at 6'2", 198, did run a 4.5 240. Again, not the most explosive athlete in terms of especially just a 31-inch vertical leap, so I thought that was a bit surprising. He'll still be a day 2 guy for me, probably early in that second round range as well. Which then takes us to the weekend and the quarterback spot. And obviously, when you talk quarterbacks, you have to talk about Anthony Richardson. Shows up at 6'4", 244, runs that 4.43 40, which is ridiculous. 40.5-inch vertical. He's setting records at that quarterback spot. Then he shows up and is throwing these dimes down the field. Just tremendous arc trajectory on his deep ball. Again, he's throwing against air, but still, you watch the footwork, improved footwork. You saw better control of that arm, but the release, the mechanics, when he's on, that dude, it's just effortless. But the thing with it is the footwork was really sloppy when you watch the film. A lot of times the footwork was just very inconsistent. I thought he's improved there. I ultimately think that he's going to need to go somewhere where a team needs to be, can be patient and really work on developing the fundamentals with him. He's going to need some time to grow. I look at Seattle. They've got Geno Smith there already. Allow Anthony Richardson to kind of develop underneath him. The other guy that really had a standout performance was C.J. Stroud of Ohio State, 6'3", 214. A guy that he showed why he's slated to be that number 1 overall pick by the Carolina Panthers. I truly believe Carolina, they made the move to take over that top spot from the Bears, and they did it right after the combine. So to me, it's either Stroud or Richardson. I ultimately believe that Stroud's going to end up being the guy. The precision passing, the accuracy, it was definitely on display there for C.J. Stroud. I think any doubters, he absolutely just looks so natural at that quarterback position. His ability to just the on-field work, putting the ball where he needed to. You saw better arm strength, the velocity was there, his ability to just put the ball wherever he needed to. To me, I thought he was definitely that standout at that quarterback spot. Another guy that put on a good show was Dorian Thompson-Robinson out of UCLA, 6'2", 203, runs a 4.56 40. He's a guy that I think is definitely improving his draft stock throughout the pre-draft process. And then Stetson Bennett. Yes, he's undersized at 5'11", 192 pounds, runs that 4.67 40. but he showcased some really good arm strength there at the combine as well. Will Levis, we know he's got the big arm, 6'4", 229, didn't run a 40, nice vertical with 34-inch. So he does have some of that twitchiness to his game as well. He looked, muscled up. A quarterback that, I saw, the last quarterback that I really saw that muscled up was Brady Quinn, and we know about his success at the next level. But the thing with Will Levis at the same time is he has worked in a pro-style offense. Play action is one of his fortes where he really plays well. I think you look at a team like the Colts, that feels like a nice fit there for Will Levis, especially when you've got arguably the game's best running back, Jonathan Taylor, in the backfield. You could run a lot of play action and really beat a lot of teams with that. Receivers. When you look at this receiver position, I thought there were a few guys that definitely jumped out, and first and foremost is going to be Jackson Smith-Njigba. He did not run a 40, but you watch the route running ability, crisp routes. He makes it look effortless, makes it look easy, and one of the things that you saw was the best 20-yard shuttle time of any receiver since 2014, and I'm talking about that sub-4 20-yard shuttle, 3.93, and then also follows that up with a 6.57 3-cone drill as well. The explosiveness in and out of his breaks. I mean, this guy, to me, he's my wide receiver one. Prove it otherwise. Find somebody else in this group that can be as explosive as him coming in and out of his breaks. I thought Josh Downs absolutely helped himself as well. He's only 5'9", 171 pounds, just those 30 and 3/8-inch arms. We know that he's got the shorter arms, which is a concern. Runs a 4.48 40 though, 38.5-inch vertical leap, so we know he's got the athleticism there. But this is a guy that looked polished with the footwork. That's something that definitely was on display, no doubt about that. Zay Flowers is another guy that showed off the shiftiness, the footwork ability, 4.42 40, 35.5-inch vertical leap, 5'9", weighed in at 182 pounds, which is something that is definitely impressive. That continued to put on additional weight after the season. Charlie Jones of Purdue. This is a guy that I think is going to find his way onto a roster. He's going to be very hard to cover at the next level. 5'11", 175 pounds, 4.43 40. He's just a smooth route runner. No doubt about it. Marvin Mims of Oklahoma. This is the guy that I think everybody is sleeping on. Marvin Mims Jr., 5'11", 183, runs a 4.38 40, 39.5-inch vertical leap, a 6'9", 3-cone drill, among the fastest in that group. But this is the guy that really traditionally was asked to run a lot of vertical routes for the Sooners. And you're really wondering, can he run those routes, the underneath routes, come across the middle? And he can absolutely do that. I think that was something that we were looking for. This is a guy that can absolutely do that, and definitely impressed. Jonathan Mingo at 6'2", 220. Bigger receiver, ran a 4.46, 39.5-inch vertical leap as well. Repped out 225 22 times. Incredibly strong at that receiver position, but also very shifty. I think that's one of the things that's surprising about him. He's a guy that could end up getting drafted higher than people are expecting. Trey Palmer of Nebraska, up and down in terms of some of the tape with him. 6 foot 192, runs that 4.33 40 though. Speed kills. I think that speed is going to help improve that draft stock tremendously. Tyler Scott of Cincinnati, 5'10", 177. We know he's a burner, a vertical threat. 4.44 40, 39.5-inch vertical leap, 11.1 broad jump as well. Did nothing to take away from that. I thought A.T. Perry definitely helped himself as one of the taller receivers at 6'3.5", runs that 4.47. But as a taller receiver, that long speed is definitely there, but it takes him a bit to get there. Runs a 1.59 10-yard split, which was actually on the slower end for this group, but definitely explosive, a guy that can jump out of the building as well. One guy that nobody's really talking about is Matt Landers out of Arkansas. 6'4" and 200, runs a 4.37 40, 37-inch vertical leap, had a 10-10 broad jump, but a guy that was showing off incredible athleticism at the East-West Shrine game. He's a guy to me that I think has done a lot to help his draft stock. Bryce Ford Wheaton of West Virginia, another guy, looks 6'4", 221, runs a 4.38 40, 41-inch vertical leap. He's a guy that's going to continue to send people back to the film to watch more of him. Under 7 seconds in the 3-cone drill, despite that size. That's something that, it's going to get him drafted. 6'4", 221. Could you potentially convert him to tight end and still have that speed? He could be a weapon down the stretch for you and really be a matchup nightmare. Demario Douglas out of Liberty definitely helped himself. 5'8", 179, 39.5-inch vertical leap, 4'4", 440 to go to that name as well. I thought Jalen Moreno-Cropper helped himself with the 4'4", 40. Wasn't expecting to see that time really jump out there. A guy that's going to be a nice day 3 pick for somebody. I think Kayshon Boutte was a guy that we were really looking to see that explosiveness, right? 5'11", 195, runs a 4.5, which isn't terrible, but, needed more time to gather that speed. Runs a 1.58, 10-yard split, 29-inch vertical leap, just a 9.10 broad jump, not overly explosive, and that was really a shock for me. I was expecting to see a little bit more out of him. So that definitely took me a little bit by surprise. So those are the receivers that really jumped out to me. Then we get to the tight end group, and this was really a lot of fun to watch. These tight ends, we've got 10 guys that could be starters at the next level at some point. I thought the guy that really put on the biggest display was Darnell Washington. At 6'7", 264, runs a 4.6, 440, 1.57, 10-yard split, runs a 4.08, 20-yard shuttle at that size is absolutely ridiculous. But then he was putting on these highlight reel catches, showing the ability to really move the sled as a blocker as well. I look at Darnell Washington. I think he solidified himself as a first-rounder. And, look, any of the injuries that hampered him during the season, they're gone. He's a guy that could be that number 3 tight end coming off the board, no doubt about it. Dalton Kincaid didn't work out. 6'4", 246. Everyone wants to see what that 40 time is going to be. Just put on that USC film the first time around. They couldn't cover him. Double-digit receptions, over 200 yards receiving. He's really a matchup nightmare. If I'm Green Bay sitting there at 15, I'm getting a tight end for Jordan Love. This is going to be the guy that's really going to be that vertical threat. But for you Michael Mayer fans, 6'4", 249, out of Notre Dame, runs a 4.7, 40, which wasn't, it's not going to wow you. 1.66, 10-yard split, 32.5-inch vertical leap, 9.10 broad jump. There are guys, Mark Andrews is one of those who didn't put on a head-turning performance at the Combine and then turned out to be pretty darn good pros. I still think Michael Mayer is going to be a first-round pick. Trust your eyes, trust the game film, go back and watch the film. This is a guy that can still run some pretty darn good routes. So yes, he's not overly explosive like some of these other guys, but I don't think that does anything to his draft stock. I think he's still going to be a first-round tight end. I think there's no question about that. In terms of the athletic freaks, Zach Kuntz, 6'7", 255, 34-inch arms, I should say. Runs a 4.55, 40, a 40-inch vertical leap, 10.8 broad jump. Just the athleticism. Also puts up 225 23 times with those 34-inch arms. That's incredibly hard to do. He put up 2 more reps than Darnell Washington did. Athletic freak there for Old Dominion. A guy that if you're looking later on in the draft, looking for a tight end, a receiving option, not the best blocker by any means, he's the guy to definitely take note of. Sam Laporta looked very smooth. He runs a 4.59, not the most explosive, but he did run a 6.91 3-cone drill. But again, look, 6'3", 245. He's just going to be one of those easy movers. I think he does a lot of damage after the catch, the physicality, and then just very smooth in the open field. He's a guy that I'm definitely a fan of. I was surprised with Payne Durham at 6'6", 253, runs a 4.87, 40. I was expecting a little bit more athleticism out of him. So that was a little bit of a surprise. But Luke Schoonmaker at 6'5", 251 out of Michigan, 4.6, 340, and looked pretty smooth in the drills as well. But that tight end position, there are a lot of guys that you can definitely make you smile when you watch him play. I thought Will Mallory was another guy that definitely helped himself. 6'4", 239, 4.5, 440, 36-inch vertical leap. Tremendous athlete. I thought that was definitely apparent with him. Blocking, still something that is a work in progress for him, like most of these guys. Luke Musgrave of Oregon State. I was actually expecting a much faster 40 time. Runs a 4.61, 1.54, 10-yard split though. So the guy that has that quick acceleration, 36-inch vertical leap. I've got Luke Musgrave just sitting outside the first round. He'll be a second rounder, but a guy who's number 4 on my list there at that tight end spot. So those were the guys that really caught my eye at the tight end position. I think there are a lot of guys that are going to not only make a roster, but can be starters at some point in their career. Then we get to the offensive line. I thought Broderick Jones definitely looked athletic. You watch the feet. You saw the strength there, the agility. This is a guy who just showcases his ability there at that left tackle spot. There was also, I can't remember which drill it was, but I think it was actually the screen drill. And he took the coach holding the bag and just drove him, clear out of the picture before getting out and showcasing that quickness, getting out in front. Cody Mock was another guy. I forgot to mention the 40 time there for Broderick Jones. Runs that 4.97, which was fastest among the offensive linemen. Cody Mauk definitely helped himself. 6'5", 302, runs a 5.08 40. This dude's just a lot of fun. A lot of fun to watch. 29-inch vertical leap, not bad for this group. Showcases the versatility, right? I think he's an efficient guy, high motor. I ultimately think he's going to be a guard at the next level. He could play tackle though, and just that athleticism definitely was on display. Paris Johnson Jr. I thought showed much quicker feet than I think I was even anticipating. I thought was an easy mover, pretty good bend for him as well. 6'6", 313. Didn't run the 40, but a guy that I think is definitely, the athleticism is there. If he can really work on that anchor, he's a guy that I think is going to end up being a force there at the tackle position. Some of the other guys at tackle, I thought Darnell Wright did everything right. 6'5", 333 pounds, runs a 5.01 40, so just over that 5 second mark. 29-inch vertical leap, 1.81, 10-yard split. He's just another guy who I think is going to be a day one starter there at right tackle for whoever drafts him. Peter Skoronski, we know, 34.25-inch arms. The length isn't there. 6'4", 313, runs a 5.16 40, but really his game is all about technique. It's about leverage. You watch his ability to move. I think he can play tackle. He can play guard, and a guy that's going to just be in the league for a long time because of that versatility. Anton Harrison, 6'4", 315, runs a 4.98 40, showcases some really nice athleticism. Big thing for him is pad level. He's going to have to maintain really, really good pad level. That's really going to be his biggest bugaboo. But a guy that I think definitely looks smooth for the most part there in the drills. I thought that Blake Freeland obviously helped himself. 6'8", 302, runs a 4.98 40, but it was a 37-inch vertical leap. That was setting records there for offensive linemen. 1.68, 10-yard split. Athleticism was never the question. It's really about his overall lower body strength. That's really going to be the biggest thing for him. I think he's definitely helped himself and got himself into that second round consideration. And then one other guy to mention is Earl Bostic Jr. out of Kansas. 6'6", 309, 5.05 40, and showcased some nice athleticism. A guy that was able to move really well in the drills. You saw the lateral agility. There's something to work with. There's some tools there, and a guy that's going to be a late day 3 guy, but a guy that can come in there and man one of those depth positions there, possibly be a swing tackle for you. At the guard spot, I thought Matthew Bergeron, he didn't actually run the 40, but you look at him, 6'5", 318. He's got good power in his hands. The lateral agility is there. This is a guy, I thought the footwork was superb as well. He's a guy that's definitely ascending a top 50 pick for me. Steve Avila absolutely looks the part. He can play center, he can play guard. 6'3", 332. A dude, he put up 225 28 times. A guy that, to me, he's powerful. He's explosive. I love the footwork out of him as well. He to me, he's an early day 2 guy. I don't think there's any question about that. I thought Anthony Bradford out of LSU, 6'4", 332. He's down to 332. Watch that weight. Runs a 5.0840. Moved really well in the drills as well. So that was something that I took away from when I was watching Anthony Bradford. The athleticism was definitely on display. Same thing with Braden Daniels. Played tackle at Utah. We know he's going to kick inside to guard. 6'4", 294. Actually had 33-inch arms. It's longer than I think I was expecting. I thought they were going to get under 33. Ran a 4.9940, and then just looked so smooth in the drills. The athleticism is definitely there for him. Definitely a guy that turned heads for sure, and someone who I think has a chance to be a day 2 guy. Probably going to end up being an early day 3, but definitely a guy that is going to be on teams' radars early in the draft. And then Jordan McFadden. 6'2", 303, actually had longer arms than we were really expecting, right? He had 34-inch arms, and at only 6'2", you wonder if maybe this guy could play tackle, if he needed to. I think he's still at his best inside. Runs a 4.9940, 1.74 10-yard split. Fastest among all the guards. He's weighed in at 302, 303. Very fluid as well. It kind of matched what you're seeing with the testing. I think Jordan McFadden is a guy that we can definitely see come off the board, early day 3, and be a guy that could challenge for a starting position right away. I thought John Gaines out of UCLA helped himself. He's a guy that played guard and center for the Bruins. Ran a 5.0140. Just looked really athletic, flying around on the drills. Another guy that moved really well was McClendon Curtis out of Chattanooga. He's a big dude. He's 6'6", 324, 35-inch arms, runs a 5'2", 440, but you saw really good movement skills for a guy that size. Really wasn't expecting that. DeJuan Jones is just a big human being. He's 6'8", 374, runs that 5'3", 540. Look, 36 and 3/8-inch arms, and then these massive mitts. I mean, they're over 11.5 inches. And look, this is a guy you're going to have to drive a sports car to get around him. He's huge, but there are guys at the Senior Bowl that were trying to use power and leverage, and I don't know what they were thinking with him. But I thought he moved much better than expected for a guy his size. I see him as a day 1 starter at right tackle. You look at Trent Brown. I think of Phil Lodeholt. Guys that play that right tackle position for a long time. He's going to be one of those guys. I firmly believe that. He's definitely an easy mover and a guy that definitely helped himself. Now, before we transition to the center spot, we do have to mention Andrew Voorhees out of USC. 6'6", 310, a guy that was really challenging for that spot in the second day of the draft. I think ultimately he's going to fall to day 3. Why? Well, he tore his ACL during the drills. Really unfortunate injury, but the competitive nature in him, he comes out on one leg and reps out 225 38 times, which is more than anyone else at the entire combine. Really turning heads. I think number 2 was Mozzie Smith out of Michigan at 34 reps. So I thought it was really impressive, that showing there, the strength along with that competitive fire, wanting to be in there with those guys. One last guy to mention is City South. They're out of Eastern Michigan. And look, this was a guy, he runs a 5.0740, 1.8 10-yard split, 32-inch vertical leap, but a guy that actually looked pretty agile. You saw the lateral agility, you saw some pretty good quickness out of him, you saw his ability to bring some power to the drills as well. I think he ultimately is a guy that's sitting with me that I'm like, hey, this guy can get drafted on day 3 of this draft. And I think he's a guy that can end up sticking with an NFL franchise. He could end up being an early pick there for the Canadian Football League, but I think if he stays there with the NFL, he's a guy that we're talking about on day 3. He was a guy that stood out when you watched Eastern Michigan play. But City South, to me, I look at him, he's a legit candidate to be a day 3 prospect. And when you watch him there, he absolutely belongs. And not only that, he's a guy that I think is going to get himself drafted. So I thought he definitely helped himself there. And then at the center position, Luke Whippler. This is a guy who had excellent footwork, decent power to his game as well. Ran a 5.1440. Moved pretty well. You saw the athleticism that was there. To me, with Luke Whippler, I think he solidified himself as a day 2 center in this draft. But he wasn't the only guy that was putting on a show. I think John Michael Schmitz, you watch him in the drills, he 5'3", 540, that's not really his game. You allow him, though, the lateral quickness. You saw the technique on display. John Michael Schmitz is going to be just fine. We've seen him there at the Senior Bowl in those one-on-one drills. He's going to be a day 2 pick. He's going to be a guy that's going to start at center for a long time. Juice Scruggs is kind of in that category with, from Penn State. Really, where are we going to see him? I thought he solidified his status as a draftable prospect there on day 3. Ran a 5'2", 240, 179, 10-yard split. Decent athleticism. He moved pretty well. I thought, especially when you're watching him on some of the pull drills, showed really good athleticism getting out there, being able to get out in front. Jovan Gwynn out of South Carolina at 6'2", 297. Really short arms, 31 3/4 inches. Played guard at South Carolina. I was talking about how guys were able to get their hands on him. I think a move to center may be a good move for him. 5'1", 240, 1.8, 10-yard split. Ran a 4.8, 20-yard shuttle. Not overly explosive. I mean, when you look at a guy like John Ojukwu out of Boise State at 6'6", 309, runs a 4.52, but still respectable there for an interior lineman. And I look at Gwynn. I think he could end up kicking inside to that center spot and could put on a decent display. Especially when you look at a guy like Alex Forsyth out of Oregon. He's battled some injuries, 6'4", 303, just a 20.5-inch vertical leap and a 7'11" broad jump. The athleticism just really was lacking there out of Alex Forsyth in the drills. So I think on the flip side there, that's something that's definitely going to hurt him. I thought Henry Inivalu out of Washington. I knew I was going to get that name wrong at some point. 6'6", 306, runs a 5'5", 40. Just looks slow in the drills. He's a guy, it's all about power for him, so he's really a guy that I worry about there at the next level. Nick Broker, 6'4", 305, shorter arms, 32.5 inches, 5'2", 40. I was expecting to see a little bit more athleticism out of him, but he does show up with a 4.7, 20-yard shuttle. I was expecting to see a little bit more athleticism than we actually saw from him. So I think Broker's a guy that's probably fighting himself as a 4th or 5th round pick. I was wanting to see if maybe he could slide into that day 2 category. I just don't see that happening. Connor Galvin out of Baylor, 6'7", 293, runs a 5'4", 840 with just a 30.5-inch vertical leap. I worry about his overall athleticism. He's the guy that's probably going to have to kick inside the guard if he's going to be able to stick there at the next level. I just don't know if that's going to happen. I thought Asim Richards looked really smooth in the drills. 6'4", 309, 34-inch arms. He's the guy that's going to play tackle at the next level. And I've got him in my top 10 now at the tackle spot. Nick Saldiveri, 6'6", 318. He's going to play guard. I thought he moved pretty well there as well. Ricky Stromberg. We were talking about centers, and I don't know how I got sidetracked with some of the other guards, but with Stromberg, 6'3", 306, 5'2", 640. Definitely a guy that I thought, he's going to be a guy that could be a day 1 starter. I thought he definitely helped himself. And then Olu Oluwatimi. We'll stick with him as the closer. 6'2", 309, 5'3", 840. This is a guy, look, when you put on the film, inconsistent at times, but when you watch him in a lot of the one-on-ones, especially at the Senior Bowl, he held his own, did really well there. He just needs the athleticism, I thought was there, was on display. I think his anchor at times can get compromised, and some of that lateral quickness just isn't always there, especially with some of those quicker rushers coming off the ball. So those were the guys that I thought really stood out for me at the combine, one way or the other. I thought there was a lot to like coming out of the combine, and I'm really excited and looking forward to seeing really where a lot of these guys are going to go come April 27th. But when you look at this draft, I'll give you kind of a sneak peek into my top 10. Carolina sitting there at number 1. They get it from Chicago. I think they're trading up for C.J. Stroud. You've got Josh McCown. There's the video online where he's just raving about C.J. Stroud as a quarterback. I think he comes in there and ends up taking over that position. I think David Tepper, there's talk about him wanting that dynamic quarterback. I think there may be some talk about potentially Anthony Richardson there. If we see him trade down, it's obviously because they're looking to position themselves to get Anthony Richardson. There was talk about that. I ultimately think C.J. Stroud's still going to be their guy, which means at number 2, Houston Texans taking Bryce Young. A lot of people are expecting Bryce Young to be that number 1 pick, but the timing of that trade, right after the combine, after seeing the performance of C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson playing as well as they did, the gut feeling to me feels like they were trading up to get one of those guys. It's kind of like when the 49ers traded up to the number 3 overall pick right after Trey Lance's pro day. There's a gut feeling here with C.J. Stroud, but I mean a nice consolation prize there at number 2 overall for the Texans with Bryce Young. Look, he measured in at 5'10" and an 1/8, 204 pounds. That's not going to be his playing weight. I think he really worked hard to try to get to 204. He didn't really throw there. He's going to throw at his pro day. He'll probably weigh in much lighter than that 204. But look, the tape doesn't lie. This guy knows where to go with the football, and just has a knack for being able to manipulate the pocket. And look, yes, he is undersized, but I thought he had a great quote. ESPN, The Athletic, everybody has, all the publications are talking about it. He's been short his whole life, so he knows what he can do within the pocket, escaping the pocket as well. It's all he's ever known. So when he's bringing that to the table and what he's going to look like at the next level, I think we've already seen glimpses of it there at Alabama. And I don't think he has anything to worry about. You talk about the Cardinals. Look, their pass rush was 24th in the league. And, you've got J.J. Watt and Zach Allen accounted for 18 of the team's sacks. They're both gone. J.J. Watt retires. Zach Allen's moved on. The only edge rusher sacked the quarterback at least 3 times was Myjai Sanders. Not just going to get the job done. Then they release Marcus Golden on top of that. Will Anderson is going to be this pick. I think they're going to run up there and get that name in there as quickly as Houston makes their selection. I think Monty Ossenforth, the new GM, and Jonathan Gannon, they're going to be excited to get the most dynamic pass rusher in this year's draft. Colts sitting there at 4. Look, the series of veteran quarterbacks. After you lose Andrew Luck, after the 2018 season, decides he's going to retire unexpectedly. Jacoby Brissett, kind of that bridge quarterback in 2019, but then you try Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan. Look, Jim Irsay is not going to be patient. So I think Anthony Richardson is kind of ruled out here. That's why I'm thinking Will Levis is the guy, and I mentioned it earlier. You put him in the same backfield with Jonathan Taylor, arguably the best running back in the league. This guy, look, not only the pro-style offense, but as I mentioned, he's at his best in play action. You've got Jonathan Taylor. Play action, it's just going to fit. It feels like a perfect fit there. Same with Seattle sitting there at 5. Anthony Richardson sets the house on fire. Seattle hasn't had a pick this high in 14 years. You've got Geno Smith. He's 32 years of age. You signed that 3-year deal for him. And, you look at it, SpotTrack.com does a great job breaking down his contract. $27 million is guaranteed at signing. That's a 1.2 base salary in 2023. Offers some flexibility, just a $10.1 million cap hit in 2023 for him. But then after that, you've got some of these roster bonuses in 2024, 2025, and the cap hits. Ultimately, the last 2 years of that deal, you're looking at $31.2 million and $33.7 million. There's some performance bonuses as well there with the escalators. So if he can duplicate that performance from 2022, then he's going to really make a lot of money for himself. So he's banking on himself, betting on himself. Already said, he's told ESPN as well that he has no problem mentoring a quarterback if they were to draft one. If you haven't been there in 14 years, get Anthony Richardson, bring him in, and help him develop there with Geno Smith. Look, if Geno Smith has a spectacular couple of seasons, you've got him in there for those 3 years. Anthony Richardson is able to develop, and then you can put AR in as your future quarterback. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. At 20, you can then start looking at some of your other positions. I thought they've done a great job up front. They bring in Jaron Reed and Draymond Jones to address that defensive line. And we thought maybe Jalen Carter could end up being in the situation there, but no. I think they go quarterback. Detroit sitting there at number 6. There's talk, hey, maybe Detroit will go after a quarterback. To me, I look at this group and, what do they have? What do they need? Jalen Carter, I think they're going to kick the tires there. But there's a lot of talk there with Jalen Carter. The charges that were brought against him, the misdemeanor charges, for his involvement in that wreck, that tragic accident on January 15th that ultimately killed the Georgia offensive lineman Devin Willock and the recruiting staffer Chandler LaCroix. They were racing. Said that she was driving over 100 miles an hour when her car left the road, and I believe hit a power pole. Jalen Carter was there, and the racing, the reckless driving, those were the misdemeanor counts. But his story also changed multiple times while he was being interviewed and by the police. And then on top of that, he shows up at his pro day, overweight, 9 pounds over, at 323 pounds, and then he just wasn't ready to participate in the drills. The positional drills were the only things that he really showed off, and he struggled. ESPN reported Jordan Reed was there and said he couldn't finish the drills. He was cramping up, he was winded, he was out of breath. So you really worry about his mental state at this point because of everything that he's had to go through. And so you still don't know what's happening from a legal standpoint. There's just so much here with Jalen Carter, and on the field, he's such a dominant presence. The blend of power and quickness to be that early penetrator, both against the run and the pass. I think the Lions, I'm sure Aiden Hutchinson would love to have him lining up there on the interior of that line. But Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, they're building a culture there in Detroit, and I just don't think Jalen Carter fits that narrative at this point. Obviously, they're still going to kick the tires. They're still talk to him and try to figure out who he is as a player. But when I look at that secondary, this is a group, only 3 of their 12 interceptions last year were hauled in by a corner. And they brought in Cam Sutton to be that nickel. You also have Emmanuel Mosley, who's coming off of injury. Jeff Okudah needs somebody opposite him to be a lockdown corner. I don't think Jerry Jacobs is going to be that guy, but I do think Jerry Jacobs is going to be a really nice, solid third cornerback for you. Get Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. Let's not mess around. He's the best pure cover corner in this year's draft. Talked about him being so smooth and fluid at the combine in his workouts. I think Christian Gonzalez goes number 6 overall to the Lions. Raiders sitting there at 7. They could go pass rush. I mean, you got Max Crosby, who led among the league leaders with 12.5 sacks. Chandler Jones, first year of his $51 million deal, a 3-year deal at that. Manages 4 sacks. That's not going to cut it. And then there's really no production beyond the 2 of them. Cleveland Ferrell was the only other defensive end to record a sack a season ago. He signs with the 49ers in the offseason. Tyree Wilson makes a lot of sense here. You bring him in, he can eventually take over for Chandler Jones, could be an interior pass rusher and kind of have that NASCAR type group rushing the quarterback. They also need a corner. Look, they finished at the bottom of the league with just 6 interceptions. The only corner to have any picks was Amik Robertson, had 2 of those 6. Rock Ya-Sin's a free agent, likely not going to be back. You bring back Brandon Faison. You have Nate Hobbs and Robertson. But bringing in Devin Weatherspoon or Joey Porter Jr., I think that makes a lot of sense. But look, defensive end and corner are 2 of the deepest positions in this year's draft. I think they can wait until day 2. Go after the offensive line. You've got Colton Miller at left tackle. Dylan Parham, I think, really belongs as a center, would be an upgrade over Andre James. Alex Barr struggled down the stretch as the right guard. They needed a long-term answer at right tackle. Peter Skoronski, plug and play, whether it's right tackle or guard. I think his home eventually will be at that guard spot. You may start him at right tackle initially, but he's a future all-pro guard, in my opinion. So I think he goes at number 7. Number 8, the Atlanta Falcons. I think the narrative, some things change, some things stay the same. Just 27 sacks, 31st in the league. That's a big reason why Arthur Smith brought in Ryan Nielsen to be their defensive coordinator. This is a dude, look, last stop, co-defensive coordinator with the Saints, finished top 5 in the sacks with 48 a year ago. But he has a track record of developing defensive linemen. D-line coach at NC State before he became the Saints D-line coach in 2017. Churned out NFL caliber defensive linemen there for the Wolfpack. I think he gets Tyree Wilson in there, versatile defensive end, 6'6", 271, sets the edge against the run, very powerful coming off the edge as well as a pass rusher. Line up in a 2-point stance, be a traditional 4-3, kick inside to provide an interior pass rush on obvious passing downs. Line him up all over. He'll be a week 1 starter for you. I think he's a guy you can develop quickly under Ryan Nielsen's tutelage. I'm happy for Ryan Nielsen. I went to school with him at USC. Really a good dude, and I hope he really turns things around there for Atlanta, because that pass rush couldn't really get any worse. I think at 9, you look at the Bears. Bears could go defensive end. I think Lucas Van Ness, Miles Murphy, that could potentially be a place to look. In free agency, they attacked the linebacker group with Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards. They did bring in a defensive lineman with DeMarcus Walker. You get Nate Davis at guard. I think they could still go for a tackle. I think Broderick Jones, Paris Johnson, even Peter Skoronski, if he falls, were to be in this pick. They missed out on Mike McGlinchey. So I think tackle could definitely be that spot. But they were, look, the whole contingent, Ryan Poles, everybody was there to watch Jalen Carter at his workout. And we know what happened. I think there are more questions than answers when they left there. And look, Carter, the dominant presence there. Really the biggest thing is the legal troubles. There are those unknowns. I think taking him, it's going to come with a huge risk. But this guy is the best defensive line prospect since Quinnen Williams, arguably the best player in the draft. He may very well end up being worth the gamble at this point at number 9 overall. We look at other guys that whose draft stock has fallen, and I think Jalen Carter is going to be no different. I think they're really going to do a lot of their homework, a lot of due diligence, and really see where Jalen Carter ends up. There hasn't been a whole lot of chatter about Jalen Carter in the media or anything like that, so it's really hard to kind of get a gauge. But this is a guy that could be a difference maker for the Bears on the defensive side of the football in that front 4. Bring some physicality that I know that Ryan Poles is looking for. I think that'd be a nice pick there. And then the Eagles, sitting there at number 10. Not often that you get the NFC champs with a top 10 pick, but I look at them. I got the pick from New Orleans when they traded up to get Chris Olave. Could it be a defensive tackle? Could they potentially go Jalen Carter to team with Jordan Davis? Not likely. They brought in, re-signed Fletcher Cox. Brandon Graham was also re-signed. So I think defensive end Miles Murphy. Those are still options, but I think it's less likely that it's going to happen. I thought that bringing in Fletcher Cox kind of offset the loss of Javon Hargrave, who left for the 49ers. James Bradbury, getting him under contract was huge, especially with Darius Slay leaving as well. I look at this group. I think that you need to get a corner opposite Bradbury. I think having Cox and Davis pairing together, Graham and Sweat, but who's teaming with Bradbury? Get Joey Porter Jr., 6'2", 193. We've already talked about the wingspan. We've talked about his physicality, his ability to jam and reroute. I just love that pick. I think this is a guy that played in Pennsylvania, so he's a guy that I think that group really knows well. And I think especially if Joey Porter Jr. ends up going out there, runs that sub 4.4 at his pro day, I think that may just solidify things. Because if you're just talking about numbers, you're not looking just at the film. The straight line speed. Can he recover if he's slow to get out of his break? That's something that I think is a legitimate concern. I think this is the guy that can absolutely do that and can end up being a stud, a cornerback one at the next level. So that's my top 10 right now. Obviously, it could very well change several times leading up to the draft. I don't think we're going to see the last of the trades in the top 10 and really that trickle-down effect after that. Obviously, if guys are trading up, what's that going to look like? Who are the teams trading up for? If we were to look at the next couple of picks after that, I think Tennessee at 11. Could they go defense like Myles Murphy? That's definitely a possibility, especially with Harold Landry coming off an ACL injury. If Bud Dupree gone, fits what Mike Vrabel wants to do, but I still think Paris Johnson Jr. makes the most sense. You bring in Andre Dillard, who's going to be your left tackle, but the guy hasn't stayed healthy, hasn't stayed on the field. Even if he does come back, I think you probably kick him inside to guard. You look at Taylor Lewan, he was a guy that really battled injury. Are you just wanting to replace him with another guy? I ultimately think that Dillard is kind of that insurance policy at tackle. You probably kick him inside to guard and draft Paris Johnson Jr. there out of Ohio State. Houston sitting there at 12. I think this is where Myles Murphy goes. 6'5", 268, explosive coming off the edge. I think DeMeco Ryans is building a defense similar to what he had there with the 49ers. Gets an interior presence with Sheldon Rankins. Chase Winovich is going to provide some depth off the edge with Jerry Hughes. Secondary, you got Jimmy Ward, a familiar face, to pair with Jalen Petrie, who was just an absolute stud from the draft a season ago. To take some of that pressure off of Hughes, though, I think Myles Murphy makes a ton of sense. Get that other edge rusher and that young guy. He needs a Nick Bosa type, and Myles Murphy isn't quite on the level of Nick Bosa, but he is going to be explosive coming off the edge for him. And then the Jets sitting there at 13. Aaron Rodgers. Said on the Pat McAfee show that he wants to play for the Jets. I'm looking at this. I think this pick is ultimately going to go to Green Bay. If the Jets want to ultimately get the deal done, who's going to play quarterback for them? It's going to have to end up being Aaron Rodgers. I think all of his potential teammates there with the Jets are interested. They brought in Alan Lazard as a receiver as well. I think everybody is expecting this to happen. It's just going to ultimately be, what does Green Bay want? I think Green Bay is going to probably look for something similar to what Seattle asked for, giving up Russell Wilson to Denver. And then I think you're also looking at it something similar with what the Rams had to give up to Detroit in the Matthew Stafford deal. I think both of those scenarios involve multiple first-round picks. I think this pick is probably going to go to Green Bay, sitting there at 13. I think that pick could very well end up being Nolan Smith out of Georgia. You get that outside linebacker guy that plays well against the run and is developing as a pass rusher. I think that makes a lot of sense. Patriots sitting there at 14. They need cornerback help. I think they also need a receiver. There's possibility they brought in Juju Smith-Schuster. That's not necessarily going to move the needle entirely for the Patriots. I think they wait on a receiver until round 2. I think this is going to be a corner. I think Devin Witherspoon is going to play that physical play that Bill Belichick is looking for. Green Bay comes back at number 15. They get Dalton Kincaid out of Utah, get that speed at the tight end position for Jordan Love. And then the Washington Commanders sitting there at 16. If Broderick Jones is still sitting there, I think you ultimately draft him. He'll be an upgrade over Charles Leno. You've already picked up Andrew Wiley in free agency to man that right tackle position, really shore up the offensive line. I think that makes a ton of sense. We could also see them potentially go after a corner. They picked up Cam Dantzler off waivers from the Vikings, but you look at Kendall Fuller, you look at Benjamin St. Just. If one of those top 3 corners are still on the board, I think that's definitely a location that we could see them focusing in on. I think there's been talk that maybe they take a tight end, or potentially even Bijan Robinson. I just don't know that that's really the smart play there for Washington at this point. I think what they have to do is really get everything shored up front first and foremost, and they can kind of let the chips fall where they may after that. So we made it through the first half of round number 1. I'll be updating my mock draft and really getting through that, talking through where I ultimately see that first round shaking out. when I talk about my first round a season ago, the top 10, I had my top 10 players, not necessarily in the right order, but I had the top 10 players in the draft. I think as we continue to study, I'm going to feel pretty confident about the guys that I have coming off the board in the top half of round one for 2023 as well. So let's go ahead and bring this podcast to a close. Really from here, I want to take a look at the positions next and really talk about where I see the top 10 at each position. So we'll have Fast and Furious podcast breaking down my top 10 at each position, where I see these guys coming off the board, where I think they should be drafted, where I think they're probably going to get drafted, and then talk about some of the gems, some guys that may be a little overrated as well. We'll obviously, once we get through that, we'll have a better idea of really where those team needs are from a free agency standpoint. We can talk through where we see the teams going in the draft, so we'll kind of go through. I think it's the easiest way is to go really more so by division and talk through all 32 teams and really what to expect for their drafts and kind of talk about my draft board for each of those teams, really what I see happening over the course of all 7 rounds of that draft, all 3 days. I'll make sure that I'm continuing to update my 7-round mock as well on the website, readyforthedraft.com, and got a lot of material that I want to bring to you. I'll be working on it one-handed after the pec tear repair surgery, but something that needs to be done. Only be in a sling for 6 weeks. That'll actually take me through the draft. So it'll make it a little bit more difficult to put my mock drafts together on the website, but I want to make sure that I'm continuing to deliver content, get everyone ready for the draft. This is really my favorite time of year, and we're less than 2 months away. We're counting down to the draft. This is really where everything gets serious. There's going to be a lot of movement, not only with trades, not only with free agency, but with